for ESG. And so these companies, the publicly traded companies, will all need to adhere to that and report against that, and thus their score will come from that standard. Now, as a supply chain, I'm going to make an assumption that many of our guests, our audience is privately held in the supply chain. I'm just going to make that assumption. Yeah. And so you say, I'm not scored, I don't have to worry about that. That's where I come back to a company's ESG score isn't just their operations in-house or their production plants or their HR and their employees. It includes their supply chain. There's a very large retailer who in their ESG report, annual report, and these are just like financial reports, there's ESG annual reports, stated that their scope 3 emissions, their greenhouse gas emissions for their company, 94% comes from their supply chain, not from their operations of all their stores and all their different facilities and production plants. It comes from their supply chain. So as they go to report their ESG efforts, it's incumbent upon them to put pressure and find partners. I'd rather look at it that way, as who's like-minded, who shares our values, and who's going to work with us to help us build towards a better world and our ESG and the balance. And so that's where I happen to think there's a really winning formula for the people on this listening in and tuning in, is if you seize this moment, you're in a position to differentiate from your competition. You're in a position to earn business and really drive ROI. So that's truly coming.
Lou, to that point, you made the biggest point that any one of our listeners out there, as we talk about the show and the privilege we have for people to be listening and also to be listening to you, our privilege to have the audience. But at the end of the day, being selfless, I am going to offer this, and it's a selfish thing. I would normally not do this, but for anyone listening out there, LinkedIn, ESG, see what it pulls up. Amazing that you actually aren't cold calling a marketing manager, a Marcom, a trade show manager, et cetera. You're reaching out to the head of ESG and saying, "Hi, I'd like to introduce ourselves, fully committed. I think we can help you with your ESG perspective. Can we have a conversation?" That person wields equally strong influence as procurement, and maybe more so in certain ways. So again, how we market, how we sell, bringing it to the Benjamins, the dead presidents, and to the things that help us hire people and prosper. Again, it's a whole avenue, it's a whole opportunity, how companies brand, how they manage facilities, how they operate, how they use materials in events and programs, and recyclability, things our industry is very well suited to do with all the rental components. As far as we've come with the reusability that used to be landfills of laminate, plywoods, and glues, and all the chemicals that go with that. We've come a long way. I think to your point, it's a mindset, it's a shaping, and it's really being a student of our game. And this is such an important aspect.
Well, I would build on that, Sean, and say, so here's the key. Let's maybe the last two segments are going to get into opportunity and what actions you can take. So the opportunity I've witnessed just through my own ESG advising to organizations, we're winning. I mean, we are driving business, and we are making an impact on society and with employees and such. So, I would say, look at this as an opportunity to go on the offensive. And most organizations, especially the larger organizations, look at this as defense. It's like compliance. I've got to do this, right? But the real winners are the ones that see this as a differentiator. It's a value proposition to their stakeholder group. So differentiate. Lean into your value proposition. Look at, where can you align your values with your customers? Look at alliances. I really believe in the power of collaboration. And, I've enjoyed all the different discussions Sean and I have about work we can do together. I mean, the power of collaboration, especially when you have shared values, can be just really profound. And so, I think that there is, understanding and learning what your customers are doing, like where is this impacting them? And there is a lot of data out there, but clearly this is an opportunity to also innovate. People forget that, it's not just coming up with a different material or how can we avoid the waste stream. It takes innovation, and innovation in terms of how we construct things, how we make things, how we end of life for these things, how we do things internally. So innovation plays a huge role in this, and the innovators are the ones that are going to win as well. And I really believe that. But the key is back to the term authenticity. I caution you that just going after an ESG oriented entity or executive with a solution that might help them with a display or some signage or even the shipping, as they start to learn more about what you're kind of walking the walk, what are you doing as a company to make sure that you're not quote unquote greenwashing or ESG washing this in terms of just putting a spin on it to try and get my business, or to the consumer. That's a big issue. Are you buy this item and we're going to plant a tree in your name? Is what's the rigor behind that? What's the impact behind that? The consumer is much more savvy to look at that. And this goes way back to things like breast cancer and what was called pink washing and, all these different things. But there's a real concern about authenticity. And the good news is most companies, if they do an internal kind of review and form an ESG committee, that's part of what I would recommend. There's such low-hanging fruit that you can adopt change in your own operations to start to build a narrative around what are you doing internally that aligns with your external efforts with your clients. And so it's thinking about things of engaging various different people inside the organization. Come up with a list of material topics that are important to your organization. Think about your various different stakeholders, like, why do we give money to this charity? How does that align with our values, and how does that align with our audiences? Get really strategic about it. Meet with your clients, right? And talk about what things would they like to see change. So I think as much as going to clients with solutions, it's also about, we're on a journey. Declare a journey that you're on. ESG isn't an overnight thing. ESG is ever evolving. It's a journey. And I encourage all my clients to always look at this and say, put a stake in the ground, start with kind of that low-hanging fruit, start to transform, engage, collaborate, talk with your customers, and you're going to find a whole different type of discussion. And now you're not a commodity, right? There's no longer that, kind of one-on-one, what's your price? It's no longer about price. It's about value. So those are some of my thoughts.
By the way, we're ready to break out of here and leave the locker room and go on the field. Really exciting. Dave, I know you're listening in, and I know you've spent some decent time with us with these programs. And from your background, from media, broadcast, messaging, really working with some of the bigger agencies in the world, what would your thoughts be on, from your perspective as we've kind of moved on with the discussion?
I think of authenticity and accountability. A lot of brands throughout the years have tried to make a claim that they're virtuous or socially responsible, but they didn't have anything to really be the watchdog to make sure they were practicing what they were preaching. And now, as Lou's discussed, they've got to walk the walk, or else these very savvy and intelligent Gen Z and the next millennials are really going to catch them on that. As we've seen, Sean, one of the largest holding companies in media, WPP, is leading the charge where they're dedicating, I think, up to 15% of their investment to, minority-owned advertising and business companies. So this is a very real thing. I think the pandemic over the past 18 months has really accelerated it. I think it's a fortunate thing that is great for the world, but brands really need to talk the talk. And it's going to be exciting to see what happens in the future with that.
That's great. Thank you. Well, Don, Mike, I know we've had segments together. We have more planned. I will tell you, we're so proud to be with you and to have this chance to set some of these chapters and segments. Lou and Sterling, we're so pleased and proud to have you. Look, we're a proud industry. We're a tight industry. We've had quite our road, and we've had our times we want to evolve, and most times are kind of are forced to evolve. But as you guys think about it, what would be your last thoughts as we move ahead, or any last questions for Sterling or for Lou?
I'll go first. Because I have the right to remain silent, but I don't have the capacity. I have some thoughts, some concern, not concerns. Let me backtrack. I think the fact that businesses are different across the board. If I'm sitting in my XYZ company and Don's sitting in his ABC company, we're probably going to look at ESG differently, first of all. And I'm going to have emphasis, for instance, on E and G. I'm just picking two letters. And you're going to have heavy on S and partial G and maybe a little bit of E. And so it's going to be across the board. And that would be another, if you give a brief reply to the fact that businesses are so different across the board, I don't see a major symmetry with every single business going down the same line. Do you see the same thing? It's just going to be a different level of which emphasis is going to be on which letter, if you will. How do you see that?
ESG really probably took the most foothold with the G first. And think about it, it was natural because G is dealing with the financial world and compliance and regulatory and dealing with disclosures, right? And so as ESG came on, it was natural to start. The C-suite started right there. They all started looking at what are we going to do? So they engage their CFO, they engage their advisors. What are we going to do around ESG? But as you start to peel it back and look at it, there's some common elements that every organization is looking at. I read every day countless ESG annual reports, and I see some very similar elements. United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Everyone is aligned with what they call UN SDGs. You can look by category of business or industry, right? So in the trade show, exhibit, event business, I can tell you one of the big elements that's across the board with everyone is waste, right? Everyone's looking at waste, And so as you look into commercial real estate, as another example, the two top topics for everyone in the industry are decarbonization, so greenhouse gas emissions, your energy and how you operate the buildings, and climate risk. Climate risk is right there, 1A, 1B with decarbonization. So the entities that are involved in various industries, I would say there's some common factors or common risk elements that's unifying everyone in that ecosystem or that industry to rally around. So that's where you see the common. The differentiators are what is authentic to your organization, right? You might lean more into the social aspect. I say own it. Go with it and really drive it. And the key is to how you share that and bring it alive with your upstream and your downstream partners.
Fair enough. Don?
Yeah. Hey, Lou, I've really enjoyed, I've learned a lot from this short discussion, opened my eyes to a lot of things. I'll be looking forward to watching changes as they keep coming at us.
I agree. I think it's been a eye-opening experience for both Don and I think we should say thank you very much for, first of all, the hospitality. You got an amazing studio here. It's the first time we've had an opportunity to step in, and hopefully it won't be the last that we'll be able to come back and talk about that. So thanks for hosting us today.
It's our pleasure. Honored to have you here. And again, Sterling, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Lou, again, we're very fortunate as a group to have you. You're one of the most sought after experts in this space, and this is a compilation of one of the more storied careers I certainly know of. And we're excited for the future where we go, appreciative for your influence in the inertia that gets peers and friends of ours going. And look, this is not the end of this. Obviously, this is the beginning. So we really appreciate you and thank you for all this time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And the best way I can amplify that, Sean, is say, remember, this is a journey, and we're on it together, and collectively, in our united efforts, we can multiply change. So let's get after it.
And we will be right back after this.